My name is Alex Aanderud. I am a hypnotist and I'm an engineer supporting experimental flight test for Boeing. So right now I'm working on a project this weekend, so I'm not been able to attend a conference, but I was able to figure out how to get the PowerPoint to work. So there is a plus to this. A little bit about myself. I've been doing hypnosis for about 8 years. I'm trained as a trainer of neuro-linguistic programming, and that's really my focus. I do mental and emotional release therapies as well as hypnotherapy. I've done a little bit of stage show. I haven't done much. It's something that I'm interested in learning. However, I have done extensive work with Rapport. Utilized it both in business and personal life, everywhere I go. And it's one of the most important skills we're going to learn. So
did you say you're an engineer?
I am an engineer.
There's right-brain engineers.
There you go.
I'm sorry. I have this insatiable desire to teach people and get around a little bit and all that. So.
Oh, that's horrible. That means we might get along.
Yes.
I don't know that I like
Last
that.
class of the day.
I know, really. There's no unsourced spot on that.
So before I get started, I always like to start with a brief frame. I like to talk about where I'm coming from and what I expect from you guys and come to an agreement. I'm going to give you guys some stuff that I agree to, and I'd like to get some agreements from you before we proceed. For starters, we're not going to have a lot of time for Q&A at the end of this. I was told to try and keep it in my time window. However, I would love and adore to have the opportunity to talk to you. I'm going to stay after class, out in the lobby, whatever, answer any questions that you have. So take notes, let me know what questions you have at the end of this. There's a series of agreements. I'm just going to put them all up on the board. First one is to be present during class. We all have other things going on. We've got life. I mean, this weekend, like I said, I've been working. I work just about 20 minutes away. I left my office in order to come here. And as soon as I walk through those doors, it goes away. This is a time that I'm here for you guys. This is a time that I'm here to give you guys the best that I can do. And the only way I can do that is to leave everything that I have going on outside of this room. And I'd ask that you guys do the same. I know that you've got a weekend-long conference and you guys are dedicated to being here. And it doesn't mean that things don't come up. It doesn't mean that you don't have a phone call, a text message, something happened. If you need to pay attention to it, by all means, you're welcome to step out and take it if you need. But I'd ask, turn it off. It's an hour and a half, and we're going to get through this, and it'll be very valuable information if you're willing to be present during the class. Be open to new ways of thinking. I don't know how many of you guys have studied NLP. Because you guys are in this class and you're doing hypnosis, I'm kind of presupposing that you guys are open to new ways of thinking. But when I teach this class, I teach it to sales professionals, I teach it to a whole bunch of different people who may not have the same breadth. And it's a presupposition for the class. It's just be open. If you guys have different opinions, happy to discuss it afterwards. I know that I don't have all the answers, but I'm happy to share my thoughts and opinions. Participate fully. We're not doing a lot of exercises. We'll do a couple during this class, but goes along with being present, just participating. Have fun. It's a choice. You guys have other options as to where to be tonight. You guys are in here. I appreciate the fact that you guys are here. And the last one is to do something with what you learned here today. Now, I'm here this weekend and I'm teaching the class. I'm not getting paid to teach. I'm coming because I want to share something that's important to me and that I have found very useful in my life. You guys, on the other hand, have paid to be here. You guys have paid to sit in this room and to get information. There are 3 other courses. I think there's 3 different courses going on at the same time as this one. I'm going to go through and I'm going to give you the best that I can. I'm going to give you the best material I have on Rapport. I'm going to talk to you guys. I'm going to teach you how to establish it, how to build it, what to do with it, and different techniques that you can use with it. And if you guys are not interested in it, if it's something that you're not interested in or you don't think you're going to be able to use, or if you guys are in the class and you're going, dude, this guy is talking and I am bored shitless. Excuse me, but if you get to that point, I would not be offended. In fact, I would invite you to go ahead and find another class. Step out. I'm okay with that because your time is valuable, as is mine. And I'm here to give you the best I can, and I don't want to waste your guys' time. So if I commit to give you guys my best, are you guys okay with the things that we have up on the board? Yeah? Okay. So what is NLP? NLP is the study of excellence. It's the study of how language affects the conscious and the unconscious mind. These are just some of the words. It's kind of weird for me. I'm used to having the screen over on this side, and then I've got my whiteboard over here. I've got a certain way I have my stage set up all the time. Having the screen like dead center, and then having this thing in the weird position just doesn't work for me. Anyway, NLP. There's a lot of words that I've heard describe it. I've heard weird. That's another good one. For me, it's been life-changing. I was about ready to get fired when I took my first training. It was 2007. And I learned a lot. It was a presentation called Presenting Magically, and I went, dude, I don't know what this is, but I want more. So I took my practitioner course. My evaluations were saying does not meet expectations, doesn't know how to communicate, does not work well with others. It was not going well for me at Boeing. And I took my practitioner course. I applied what I learned in NLP. I got promoted 4 times the next year. I took the master practitioner course, applied even more stuff. They started flying me all over the place. It got to a point where the second level managers would say, before we say we can't do that, send Alex in and let's let him take a look at that. And it was very fascinating to me because people called me the possibility coach. It was not necessarily an affectionate term. It was, oh, here comes the possibility coach. I said, thank you so much. I'm using that as my business name. So I'm actually the possibility coach. I do that outside. But breaking down NLP. NLP is neuro-linguistic programming. So let's break it up into 3 different parts. You have neuro, which is the mind or the nervous system, linguistics, which is communication, and programming, which is a variety of patterns. Basically, what that means is how to use the language of the mind to consistently produce your desired results. It's a formula, it's a process, it's a series of processes, but it's modeled off of excellence. NLP is not in and of itself a creation. NLP is a series of tools. I think the most original tool of NLP was modeling. Modeling is being able to look at someone who does something really well and going, shit, I want that. How do I do that? I want that. And what they did in NLP is they developed a method to be able to, using language, drill down to what was expected, what is necessary in order to accomplish that result, and what's idiosyncratic, what's specific to the person. So NLP is the study of subjective behavior and how it affects our behavior, a pattern interrupt. NLP is the ability to learn how to influence your world. Images come in, sounds, everything comes in. Like phone ringing, for instance, everything comes in. We process it through our senses. We create an internal representation in our brain, and that is what we perceive as the now. I was at a training for my trainer's training, and I had a doctorate of psychology who was a little bit intoxicated come up because I was talking about NLP, and he says, dude, you just don't understand reality. And I went, great, prove something's real outside of your head. He said, well, look, I can see it. He said, processes through the optical nerve, internal representation, processes in the brain, that's in your head. He said, okay, well, I can feel it. I said, we're going to ignore the fact that there's an electromagnetic dispersion of energy and that your cells aren't actually touching, it's actually pushing apart from each other. We're going to ignore that. It still processes through the senses, into the brain, internal representation. I said, prove it's real outside of your head. He says, well, you agree with me. And I said, well, here's the deal. Even if I agree with you, the only way you know that I agree with you is because you perceive me agreeing with you, which means it's still inside your head. Well, at which point he went, fuck. And that's one of the times I introduced myself at the NGH meeting. Yeah. That was where I became the professional mindfucker. Yeah. That was the moment. So, NLP is used by a lot of people. Tony Robbins bases almost everything he does off of NLP. There's a lot of really good speakers out there. Darren Brown is one of my favorites because watching some of his videos, he has one where he does a color swap and he has some people at a bar and he has the woman look at the colors, and all of a sudden she's like, forgets which color is which, and then goes out and looks at her car and doesn't realize that her car is there, because this is like my car, except it's painted different. So I figured out what he did, and I went and did it just for fun. But that's what NLP allowed me to do, is because they taught me modeling. They taught me how to break down what someone else is doing in order to create the same result. And the first time I went out, it didn't work. So I went back to the video, watched it again, tore it apart, found some things I missed, and it worked the next time. Which then takes us to results. How many of you guys have heard that focus determines your results? Yes? Cool. So I'm going to go on with this. Goals determine your results. Actions, values, aptitude, altitude, attitude, all of these things. Bottom line is, you determine your results. You're the one who's in charge of deciding how far you're going to go and what you're going to be and how successful you're going to be. Now we're going to talk about the power of focus. Don't think of blue tree. We do this all the time. It doesn't process the negatives. Blue. Hey, look, it's a blue tree. Now, this is a standard bell curve, 0 to 100%. Most people in life focus on this point right here. This is passing. When you're taking a class, not just this class, but if you're taking a class in school or something, 70% we're going to say is passing. And most people go, dude, I don't care what I get as long as I get there. Now, I won't say that's any of you guys in this room. I will say there's at least one person in the room who was that way. And when you focus at passing and you miss by 1%, you don't make it. However, if instead you focus at excellence, if you focus at excellence at 100%, you can miss by 29% and still be better and achieve more than most people who only focus on passing, because they achieved their goal at 70 and your failure is 71. So we're going to talk about rapport today. Rapport is a state of unconscious responsiveness that opens the channels of communication. Now tonight I've got to keep our conversation, I've got until about 6 o'clock to go over questions and stuff afterwards, because I'm working with a nonprofit. It's called Dean-Malay. It's for guys 12 to 21, and they're doing their installation tonight. There's a young man who's up in front of the room, and he's going to be the one who's going to get installed, which means basically put into his position. And he's so nervous. It's awesome. I mean, he's a 17-year-old kid. He's just about ready to graduate, and he's got to stand up in front of 28 people and talk. Now, I put together a binder for him. I'm helping him. Okay, this is how you do it. But he's the one who's going to need to get up and talk. And so he's up there and he's practicing. This is 11 o'clock last night, and he's like, Dad, Alex, can you please come take a look? I'm like, yes, I'll go spend some time with you, not a problem. So he's going through this thing, and he's got it down pat. He sounds great. And he goes, Dad, I just don't know if I can do it. I don't know if I can do it. I said, dude, relax. You're going to go over it one more time tomorrow, and then it's the night. And he asked me, have you ever faced something like this? I mean, the first time you were installed as a master counselor, as the head of the local group, were you ready? I said, no. I don't think I was ready when I got installed head of the state. I don't think I was ready when I ran for international office. I did it anyway. When I ran for state junior counselor, I got it and I let the ego go to my head. And then I was at the state conclave the next year, which is where we elect our state officers. And there was a guy running against me. His name was Travis. And I was sitting up in the front of the room, and Travis was over on that side, and they were tallying the votes. And the first vote came out, Alex. And I'm thinking, yeah, I got this. Like, I was very confident because I knew that I was anyway, I knew I could do it. Alex. I looked over at Travis, and he was kind of shaking a little bit. I didn't hear my name again. Out of 75 votes, I didn't hear my name one more time. I was devastated. 16-year-old kid who was in a state line, supposed to be a progressive 3-year option, voted out of the line. I was talking with one of my advisors about it, and he was like, you know what, I'm done. I'm not going to do this. I'm not helping the state anymore. I'm going to go back to my local area where they want me there. They're going to support me because those were the votes for the 3 people from my own chapter. They voted for me. But actually, one of them didn't. I found out later. But prick. Anyway, so I'm like, I'm done. And he looked at me and he said, "Are you doing it for a title, or are you doing it because you know you can? Because you know you can make a difference." He said, "I want you to call me tomorrow, and I want you to tell me what you're going to do. Because for me, I think you have it in you. But are you willing to put aside what you think you are? And are you willing to do more? Are you willing to step in and be the leader that I think you can be?" I'm a trainer of neuro-linguistic programming. I've taken hours and hours and hours of trainings. I've flown back and forth to a bunch of different conferences, and I've officially been deemed by the Association of Integrative Psychology as a trainer of neuro-linguistic programming. I have the full body of knowledge to a point where they think I can teach this material. And out of all of the tools that I've learned, Rapport is the #1 most useful tool. Everything that I know, even all the things I've learned in engineering school, the most useful tool I've had at Boeing is Rapport. Rapport is an opportunity to connect to people, to be able to have a relationship, to build a deep level of trust. M.R. Covey has a book called The Speed of Trust, where he talks about the importance of it, but he doesn't say how to build it. Rapport is trust instantly. It allows you to connect with people at a deep level instantly. You were at the NGH meeting with me the other night, right? When I reached over and I went like this to you, you went into a little bit of a trance, right? Mm-hmm. And by that point, I considered you a friend. I'm like, dude, I don't know, I just met you that night, but we had a connection. Would you agree?
I had a connection the moment you sat next to me. You know, just,
Right.
but even when you did that, it was like, okay, you know, I felt like, okay, I can open up more.
You can open up more.
Yeah.
So, did you feel a connection when we met outside?
That's why I'm like here.
Yeah. That's where you're, that's awesome.
Yeah, I wanted to go to the other one, but I saw your name. I'm like, you know what, this is good enough. You see the title.
Awesome.
So,
Everything when you started talking, explaining, I mean, it was something that, okay, that's cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And it's not necessarily anything that I said.
Yeah.
That's just it. Rapport isn't necessarily anything you say. It's the inability within a few seconds to be able to build a deep connection with somebody. I'm going to explain later about how communication is mostly physical, but if that's the case, rapport, you're traveling all over the US, you're traveling all over the world, it doesn't matter if you can speak the same language, because you can get into rapport with somebody and be able to build a relationship with them and be able to build trust with them without even being able to use the words of their own language. I had a friend who was working a shipping company, East Coast to West Coast, and they didn't have the permission, I don't know all the details, but he didn't have permission to go through the Panama Canal. And apparently it's a very long, litigious process to be able to be authorized to go through the Panama Canal. And my friend flew down there. He had learned NLP, same school I was in. And he talked to the receptionist, talked to the person who was in charge. And all of a sudden, he was out at dinner with the person who was in charge of making that decision. And a process that usually took 6 months, he was able to get done in 2. The woman says, "He's taking you like you're a family friend. Do you know him?" It's like, "Nope, met him today." Boeing moves me around a lot. I've only been here since July. Moved back to Oregon recently. Just moved from Oregon here, but before that I went back. I was living in Maryland. My dad and I were driving across the country. And we got to Montana. And I just have to say, when your GPS says continue on Highway 80 for 837 miles, you just say fuck you to the GPS. I don't care if you're a pastor, you say that to the GPS at that point. You're like, you know what? No, I'm going to get off at least twice, just to get lost so I can have something else. We got partway through Wyoming, stopped for the night at a hotel, got up, kept driving. My wallet was sitting in the hotel. We were 200 miles. I was out of gas. I have a local credit union based out of Washington called Boeing Employee Credit Union. And because they're based out of Washington, they don't really have a branch in Montana. However, I was able to go into a local branch of a partner shared credit union and convince the manager with no ID, no debit card, and no proof of who the hell I am, and convince them to give me $300 out of my account to allow me to get the rest of the way home. My friend was in Hawaii. His name's Seth. He and I were living in Washington at the time. And he had a woman who was staying at his house, supposed to be house sitting. They were just supposed to go check on the cat. And she decided that she would just stay there. Problem is if you stay in the house, in the apartment more than 2 weeks, you have to get added to the lease. It's in the contract, otherwise they'll evict you. Which is why he got an eviction notice taped to his door. So she called me up and said, what do I do? I said, leave. Because she was out there smoking on the back patio right across from the office. That's how they knew that she was there. And I went in and I talked to the guy. And long story made very short, I was able to convince the landlord to change the lock on my buddy's apartment without being able to contact him because he was in an area of Hawaii with no cell service. And he changed the locks and then gave me a copy of the key so I could meet him at the airport. Rapport is a magic wand. Rapport allows you to do anything that you want to do. And we'll learn later about how one of the quickest ways to break rapport is to violate someone's values. So you got to be ethical with rapport. And rapport, you can work magic. Rapport is something that reaches every aspect of your business, of your life. As a stage hypnotist, because that's the track that we're in, is talking about stage hypnosis. When you get up on stage, you have to build rapport with people quickly. When they walk up on the stage and you go to shake their hand and say, thank you so much for coming, in that 40 seconds between the time they walk up and they get on the stage, you shake their hand and you have them sit in a seat, you've either made or broken your show. Because you've built rapport or you don't have it. The people who go the deepest into trance are the ones who you have rapport with. Milton Erickson was a master of rapport. He didn't even know how to do it. He just did it. So I've got a handout for you guys. Just pass those. So up on the top it says rapport is the state of unconscious responsiveness that opens the channels of communication. What does that mean? It's a relationship between two people quickly. You build trust and you're able to do more with people because they know, like, and trust you immediately. In 1972, Bert Whistle did a study on communication, and he found that 55% of the communication was physiology, 38% of communication was voice, and only 7% were the words. People spend a lot of time learning how to teach, learning language, learning skills on how to write and communicate. A lot of days today, like when I'm working with the youth group, they want to text everything, and I look at them and I go, you're only communicating 7%. You lose 93% of communication when you send an email, when you send a text message. When you're interacting with somebody, 55% of the communication is their physiology, how they're sitting, how they're standing, where they're moving, what they're doing, how they're breathing, where their eyes are moving, how they hold their eyebrows, whether they're leaning forward, whether they're sitting back, if they have their arms crossed, their legs crossed. All of that is communication. There's a lot of books out there that talk about what each of those things mean. And those are good statistical, like most people believe this and most people act this way. However, rapport is about getting to learn the person next to you. What does it mean for them? All you're doing is using your sensory acuity to notice shifts. So we're going to talk more about how to build rapport later, but for right now, Milton Erickson, as I said, was a master of rapport. He, at one point, could tell that somebody had gone into trance because the pulse in their ankle had slowed. Milton Erickson also said that a client is a client because he's out of rapport with his own unconscious mind. There are hundreds of books on Milton Erickson. You guys read any of them? Yeah, that's some. Okay. I have poured through probably 30 or 40 books on Milton Erickson. I've got the complete works. I got these 4 volumes, are like this thick. I've read through those. I have not found a volume of Milton Erickson work that explains how to build rapport. In every single one, he talks about how important rapport is and how important it is to have rapport, but he never explained how to create it. And that's where the skill of NLP comes in, is because they were able to model and find out exactly how he was building rapport with his clients, how he was getting in so quickly. And it's a process called matching and mirroring. So, if you could, there you go. Thank you. Right now, we are mirroring each other because right arm, it's right across the, looks like I'm looking in a mirror. Now, now we're dancing and we're doing the robot. This is what this is. This is matching because my left hand, my left hand. We're both matching, his left hand, my left hand. Matching and mirroring, I've heard different statistical studies. One said, I think it was 73% better rapport building if you use mirroring. Another one said you get 38% increase if you use matching. I don't know how you measure increases of rapport scientifically. So for me, use whichever one makes sense. Matching or mirroring, the trick is to match and mirror. That's how you build rapport. Here's a couple of, here's another good example. Matching on the top. You got mirroring down below. Examples of in life. Now, when you look at this, people go, yeah, their hand, you know, they both have their hand on their chin. That's how they're matching. But if you look right here, their hands are both draped over to the side. They're both looking at an upward angle, so they're probably looking at the same thing. But still, that builds. Look at their eyebrows. Look at how they match. Look at the tonus of their skin. Look at the shine. That means that they have their pores opened up in a specific way. It means they're feeling an emotional response that is creating a physiological shift that creates shine in the cheeks. And they're matching that. It's not that they're doing it on purpose. See, matching and mirroring is a volume of pacing and leading. Now, when you pace somebody, when you're moving through it, my nephews are great at matching and mirroring, but I wouldn't call it building rapport, I'd call it mimicking. I raise my right hand, they raise their right hand. And I say, why are you doing that? They go, why are you doing that? I go, ha ha ha. They go, ha ha ha. Then I start going like this. Why? And my sister just goes, oh my God. Because I'm teaching them it's okay to be weird. But I do that, and then they do that. But they're doing it inside of my conscious awareness. Matching and mirroring needs to be done outside of the conscious awareness. It needs to be done at a level of the unconscious level, because most emotional responses are done at the unconscious level. When you feel trust, there's this idea of I trust them. My brain has logical conclusions as to why to trust them, and it's a justification for the feeling that you have. It's a justification for a physiological feeling that you have identified as trust. There we go. Okay. So rapport. 55% of communication is physiology, 38% is void, and 7% is words. If matching and mirroring, the more you match and mirror, the closer you match and mirror to somebody, the better your rapport is. And 55% of communication is physiology, that's probably a good place to start. So let's look at physiology. So there are different things that you can match and mirror with physiology. You can match posture, match how people are sitting, For instance, back of the room, you two are sitting with your legs crossed. Gestures, noticing specific gestures that people make, being able to use the same gestures. Breathing, if you can match somebody's breathing, their rate, their location of their breath, how they're breathing, noticing how their facial structure moves, all that stuff. If you can match their breathing, you'll build rapport really quickly because that's at an unconscious level. You're just like me. I'm going to skip the facial expressions. The blinking is the other one. If you can figure out a way to match the blinking rate of a person, then you've got almost an instant rapport. Yeah.
So what you're saying is, if I'm talking to you, you got your hands in your pocket, I put my hands in my pocket,
Yep.
and you take them out, I take them out. I mean, that instant.
So you and I, put your hand, go ahead and stand up for a minute. Let's do it. I'll show. Okay? So now watch this. Ready? If I go like this, how long before your head decides that it feels like it needs to move out, right? It's not necessarily that you're going to do it immediately, but you and I have rapport. And so when I pull my hand out, there's an automatic tendency to move. When you see two people who are sitting next to each other, if one person puts their leg down, you'll typically see the other person put their leg down within about 3 to 5 minutes. The thing is that it happens at an unconscious level. So rapport happens at an unconscious level. It's not something that was created by NLP. They looked and went, wow, how did they get in rapport? And they noticed that people were doing this. And then, well, what happens if we do that on purpose? One of the things I teach the young men that I work with is if you go to shake someone's hand, what's a good handshake? Huh? I can tell you the best handshake is the one that they give you. I wait half of a second behind whenever I give somebody a handshake, and I go to shake their hand, and I give them a handshake that's the same handshake that they just gave me. Because when you go and you shake somebody's hand, it's a great way to build rapport. But for me, I've had people who go to shake my hand and they go like this, and you're just, and I'm just kind of like, it does. But who's, again, we go back to the beginning where we're focusing on excellence. Who's responsible for the results? If you know how to build rapport, and you understand the importance of matching and marrying, and you want to be able to have open and honest communication with the people, like I did when I came in here, and I said, you know what, if you guys don't want to be here, you're welcome to go, because this is important to me. And if you're not going to use this outside of the class, then you don't need to be here. The only reason I can be open and honest is because I spent some time and I built rapport with you guys. Rapport is important, and whose responsibility is it to build it if you know how? When I go to shake your hand, if I shake your hand like this, and you're like, dude, that's disgusting, that's fine. And who's responsible for the results that you're going to get? Whoever does, whoever takes responsibility. When you match physiology, the handshake is one of the best ways when you go and you meet someone for the first time. The entire time you're walking toward the person, to be able to move in a way that they're moving, to be able to lean your body in the way. When you go to shake their hand, notice how they move and they move at the same time and you shake their hand. You can build rapport in seconds before. There was somebody who was walking out of the class and she said, like, I went and I shook her hand and said, hey, how you doing? She says, great, I know you from somewhere, don't I? No. I just built rapport with you, which is what I'm about to teach, and you're not going to be here for the class, but that's okay. Because
I told you, I met you too. I've seen you on TV, haven't I? I've seen you somewhere.
yeah,
I thought I'd seen you for sure somewhere.
and we'll get into the indicators of rapport, but that's one of the indicators of rapport is that they say something like that. That indicates that rapport has been established. Is it's like, God, I know you. I feel like I could tell you anything. I don't know why, but I feel like I can trust you for some reason. And it works both ways. Because when you build rapport with somebody and they go, dude, you know, it seems like I know you. At the same point, when I built rapport the other night with you two, right? At the end of the night, it's like, oh, these guys are awesome. I feel good inside because I chose to build rapport with you guys. Because I got the gift myself that I gave to you, which is an open communication between the two of us. Yeah.
Question, why'd you choose us two? Even though we're here now, but why'd you choose us two? I'm just curious.
I do it to everyone I meet.
Oh, okay, everybody.
And I did, there was actually, I did talk to you two specifically, because I knew a lot of the other people in the room, and I hadn't met you two before, and I was watching how people were interacting. You guys were, and tell me how spot on I am or how far off I am. You guys came, you knew a couple of people, but you were kind of feeling like, okay, I'm here, you were looking for something. You weren't sure what. You knew what you were looking for because you were coming for the meetup and you didn't know anyone. But both of you guys were looking for something. There was something missing. There was a connection. There was something that wasn't there, right? Is that fair? Okay. That's what rapport is that connection. All I did was give it to you. Everyone else there had rapport with somebody else in the room.
Yeah.
You guys were just kind of like, okay, I was, and they were all doing their own thing.
Yeah.
It was like, without talking about any of the specific people, after the presentation, someone came up and was saying, hey, I know that you're really into science, and what he was saying was that was a break in rapport. Because he made assumptions and it wasn't what you were, it wasn't where you were at. And afterwards, you were feeling that disconnecting, and I went, dude, wasn't that funny? Here, let's connect again.
Yeah.
Because that's what rapport is. I take responsibility for the results. You guys are learning how to do the same thing. Matching and mirroring the physiology allows you to create rapport instantly, even without talking to somebody.
So,
Yeah,
no,
go ahead. Go ahead, guys.
how exactly do you do that without, I mean, looking creepy, you know? I mean, obviously, like you said, it's on an unconscious level, but if you just stick your hand in your pocket and I instantly go and stick my hand in my pocket, you're going to be like, why did he just put his hand in his pocket? Are you going to be like that, or are you not going to be like that?
I can tell you I've only had 2 people who caught me on it, and it was because I was seeing how blatantly obvious I could be when I was doing it. Now, I'm going to get into this a little bit further, and if you catch me trying to build rapport with you, and I go, it was a tool I learned how to open up and have better communication. What do you think? And you laugh at it. They're going to laugh. You've just built rapport. You keep going with it. Because worst case scenario, somebody catches you, what are you doing? I'm trying to make a better interaction between the two of us. Please forgive me. I will never do it again. Take care. Right? So I had a lot of fear the first time I learned about this because I watched my nephews. I know how obnoxious they are when they do that. And I'm thinking, I don't want to be that. And at this point, I don't even think about it. I didn't go, I'm going to build rapport with you two. I was like, okay, I feel connections with people. There isn't a connection. It was an automatic thing. When I walked in the room, it's just automatic. It's just what I do. It's the same thing when you're in the front of the room and you guys are doing stage hypnosis. Stage hypnosis. That's what this branch is. It's stage hypnosis, right? When you're in front of the room, you can't build rapport with the entire audience like that, consciously. But when you look through the room and you notice who some of the key indicators are, the people who, when they move, this entire section moves. I've been in front of 300, 400 people, and it's so cool because it's like, this section right here, when that person right there moves, all of these people move too.
Not necessarily spontaneously.
And when it's like that person moves and within 5 minutes everyone else is going to be in the same position. And when that person over there moves, this entire section over here does. Which was the weirdest thing because it's like they were all watching this person out of the peripheral vision. But every time this person moved, this entire section over here, there's like 20 people over here, they all got reframed into that position. So what you do is you just trust your unconscious mind. And you go, you know what? I'm going to build rapport with that person, periodically. The other thing it does is when you're up in front of the room, it reminds you that you have an audience, that you're trying to keep a connection with while you're working with the people on the stage. And so when you build rapport with an individual person, and you just take a second to look, put your eyes, move, put your face in the same position, you recognize, there's that instance, have you guys ever been at a theater or something, and someone looks out at the audience, like they're looking out at the audience, and all of a sudden they stop, and it's just like, whoa, he's looking right at me? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
He may or may not have been looking right at you. What happens is, they are in a similar physiological state in their facial expression. There's something about it that triggers your body to go, whoa, just like me, he's connecting to me. This is how you do it. This is how you build rapport. Voice, tone, pitch, timbre, speed, quality, volume. When somebody's talking, and I'm talking with somebody who's got a very high-pitched voice, I don't talk like this. even though I loved Roger Rabbit, that was an awesome movie. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Anyway, I don't do that. But I may talk in a little bit of a softer tone. I may raise it up just a little bit. Because when I'm connecting with somebody, then all of a sudden it feels a little bit more genuine to them. And it's like, wow, you know, he's really hitting at my level, versus if I'm talking with somebody who has a really raspy voice. I'm not going to talk like this because it's not natural for me. But I may have just a little bit more in my voice when I'm talking. I may lower it a little bit. I may move it a little bit more to the back of my throat. And I'll just say there, you know, if I'm just talking with him. If I'm talking with a variety of people, I make sure to use a bunch of different tonalities, as I've been doing this entire presentation, going back and forth from a low to a higher tone, being able to move my body, my posture, leaning forward, leaning back. All of this stuff has been done because you guys are all in different positions. How do I maintain connection with everyone in the audience? I move. I put myself into different positions. Now, some of it is because I'm up here in front and I'm still kind of, you know, just getting back into the flow of teaching. I've been at work all day. The other part is because when you're leaning forward, you're leaning back, you have your hands on your knee and your knee is shaking, and you're sitting over there with your arms crossed, trying to make sure that I'm keeping track of everything that's going on in the room. I just go to my unconscious mind, okay, you're in charge. I trust you, do what you need to do. Pitch. You have a range that you naturally speak in. Listen to the person you're talking to, and if it's just a little bit higher, make it a little bit higher. If it's a little bit lower, do it a little bit lower. As a hypnotist, you have a trance voice. Now I want you to go deeper into your mind and experience the things that you all know that you have experienced. And there's a voice that you use when you're talking with your friends. It's like, dude, did you see which, like, there's all of this different stuff that you use naturally in your life, but you're not aware of it. So now that you know, you can become aware of your own patterns, and in becoming aware of your own patterns, you can adjust your own patterns in order to create different results.
Alex, just to share something.
Yeah.
I also had formal training for rapport and relationship building. I come from the medical industry, and quite literally right out of college, I went into the medical industry. And as I recall, we had 2 days of rapport and relationship building, literally right out. As soon as you got hired, that's what you started to learn first. And it sounded strange at the time. But the interesting thing is that I've recognized now that I'm 48, I'm not 25 anymore, is that it has become just like they experience, or as they explain, which is you try to get it to where it becomes very automatic. And it starts out to be very manual, that he's moving his hands, and I'm thinking about this, you know, but versus where my pitch automatically changes, my posture automatically changes, and they gave a really good example, and I don't know if you've experienced this as well. Try to shake hands with somebody who takes their hand and does this without seeing that person do this back at you.
Right.
It's almost impossible. And that's an automatic response. You don't even think about it, it's just like it flows together. And that's what they trained us from, because we were dealing with surgeons and stuff, so they wanted proper handshakes and stuff. But they really wanted us to be able to mimic exactly that initial response right from the start.
Did you notice how we were sitting the same?
Yeah.
Because I've also been trained in NLP and rapport, and it's automatic. He moves, and I do it. Or I look over there and I say, hey, you're really. And suddenly I'm this way, then I'm like that.
So you guys don't really even think about it anymore.
No.
But at first you have to in order to
I've been doing it so long.
do that, right? When you practice, and it's just like
You gotta
practicing
practice
anything,
it.
right?
You
have
it's
to.
just like, there's different stages of learning. And I talk about when my nephews were learning to tie their shoes, right? There's a point where it's like, they don't even know they have shoes that they need to tie, like they'll just run out in their bare feet. Then they're like, hey, look, I learned how to tie my shoe. And they're like sitting, and you're like, oh, that's so good. They're like, shh, I'm tying my shoe. And then there's the, okay, I'm tying it. No, I'm okay, just give me a second. And then there's just, yeah, whatever, we're going. Same thing driving a car. You're driving a car, and you're like, okay, I got it at 10 and okay, what do I make? Don't turn the radio on. Don't, like, and now all of a sudden you're driving down the road, you got one hand here. I saw this ad from Germany, and it was somebody who was eating a burger, holding a drink, knee on the thing, other foot out the window, and said, who's driving? I mean, you get to the point where you're just comfortable with it. That's how any skills learn. Any skills learn that way. I'm breaking down stuff that I've done here and stuff that I did in previous nights, not because I did it consciously, but because I went, okay, what did I do that I can talk about? I just do it and then I go, okay, cool, that was cool. What did I just do? And so when I'm breaking down, like for instance, I don't even remember our interaction right up front. I remember talking to you, but I don't remember specifically what did I do, how did I move, what did I, no, it's just automatic. I walked in, you were standing in a particular way, my shoulder dropped down a little bit because you were facing me and your right shoulder was dropped down just about that much. You were standing a little bit askew. And so I just dropped it. I mean, but that I remember because I went, oh, that's funny. Because I just caught myself doing it. I didn't go, oh, his shoulder, I need to drop it. No, I noticed it after I did it and went, that's kind of cool. This is fun. I catch myself doing it now. Does that make sense?
Right.
Yeah.
Isn't the big reason that this is so valuable is because in order to do it, you have to really be tuned into the person that you're interacting with. And when you're tuned into someone, they sense that you're tuned into them and they return the favor.
Yes. Rapport is not a one-way street, as I was indicating. Why? Because I like how it made me feel. I get just as much out of it when I build rapport with somebody as they do, because it is a circle. It goes both directions. Does that make sense? 7% of our communications are words. Predicates. I see what you're saying. I hear you, man. I feel you, dude.
Grok your mouthpiece.
Huh?
Said I grok your mouthpiece.
Yeah. I don't know, something smells fishy about what you just said. Everything I mean, I see what you're saying, I hear you, man, I feel you, guy. Those statements all mean the same thing at a conscious level, but one's visual, one's auditory, one's kinesthetic. And so being able to identify what someone's predicate system, what they primarily use when they talk. Key words. Listen, this is important. You hear that phrase, there's common expressions. They listen. Every time they say something important, they're like, dude, listen. You use that, like, wow, yeah. Get me. Medical profession. Right now in the state of Missouri, we are the first state who is working to pass anything to help mitigate physician suicide. Right now, the Show Me Compassionate Medical Education Act, due to the stress and trauma that is being induced at medical school, sleep deprivation, long hours, high expectations, perfection is mandated. And on top of that, the people who are there to help with psychological issues also control whether or not you can practice medicine and if you get a good job. We're the first state who's working to help mitigate the risk of students and doctors who are dying every day at their own hand. I'm associated with that community because I'm training one of the people who's speaking to that group. She's one of the spokespersons for it. But when I walk in and I'm surrounded by white coats and I don't have a college degree, I have to listen to what they're saying. I have to shake their hand in the right way. I've been invited to their house. You want to go out to the Fox? We'll go have dinner. It'll be great. I've gone out with these people, but it's not because I am just like them. It's because I like them. And I'm like them to them. I make them feel a particular way because rapport allows you to have that feeling. Oh, look, that's next. That was a good transition. Internal feeling or senses, color shift, noticing again their cheeks start to flush or they lose color in the cheeks, just a shift in the color. They say something, seems like I've seen you on TV, do I know you from somewhere, it feels like I've known you forever. Leading. Now earlier I talked about breath, and if you're matching somebody and you're trying to build rapport with them, and you're trying to match their breath and you're talking to them, it's hard to have the conversation because every time they take an in-breath, you have to wait to say your next phrase. That doesn't work so well. But if I am going like this when I'm talking with somebody at the rate that they're breathing, like I'm scratching my shoulder or something, I'm still matching and mirroring them. their body is doing some motion, and I am cross-matching it with another part of my physiology. Allows you to build rapport even when you can't see it. Leading, again, pacing and leading. I talked about pacing. It's about when somebody does it, it's not doing it immediately in the conscious awareness. You put your hands in your pocket, you do the same thing a few minutes later, right? It's pacing. The point is to get to a place where you're leading, where when you pull your hand out, they want to pull their hand out too. Does that make sense? So with leading, another fun one, I was at work and I was sitting in a meeting, and it's one of those meetings where there's nothing getting done and we've got 4 hours of nothing getting done because it's a meeting about meetings. And there's a guy next to me who's sitting there with his leg pushed against mine, going like this. Have you guys ever had that before, where you're sitting next to somebody and their leg, and you're just like, dude, stop. You know what I'm talking about? Well, I'm sitting there at the table, and he's doing this, and I grab my pen, and I start tapping it on the desk. And he and I are talking, I'm like, yeah, dude, and I'm like, I'm moving in the same way, I'm matching his physiology and his visual, and I'm tapping at the same speed. And then I start to slow down my tap, until I finally slide the pen away and his foot stops moving. It was awesome. I was like, this is a good day. I'm going to celebrate this day because the shit works. It's awesome. Leading is important. Stage hypnosis. How do you get someone to go into trance? Build rapport and go into trance. Why does the little key fob work? Because I put it over here and I point it at you. So I showed this to a couple of people. What you do is, like for instance, I've got this Toyota key, and it's got the little Toyota emblem right here. And if I come over here and I sit like this and I just go like this, it automatically, I don't care how many times you do it, it puts someone into a light state of trance. Because they're fixation, right? Fixation causes trance. Now, when I do that, I'm also reaching out, which means where is it in my vision? I have to go into peripheral vision in order to do it. So I'm putting myself into trance at the same time as I'm getting them to do it. I've already built rapport with them. I go into trance, they go into trance, and I induce it with this. It's amazing how fast it can work. So, how to break rapport. This is important. Okay, so breaking rapport, why is that important? Because sometimes you get stuck in conversations with individual people who you don't necessarily want to talk to for a long time. I love my mother-in-law. It's a joke. Both statements. Anyway, but it's an opportunity. If you break rapport and you do it in a way that you're not breaking it, like you're not just like smashing it and going, okay, I'm done. But if you just, someone is standing in a particular way and you shift your body or you move, you can break rapport enough that it's like, it makes that awkward situation. And I don't know why you never want to do that, because if you have rapport with somebody, you can leave the conversation, just say, hey, it's great talking with you, I gotta go. And they'll go, cool, because you're already a friend. So I can't really think of a lot of good reasons to break rapport. I can think of how you can do it. Stop observing, stop listening, misquote your participant. If somebody says, I get this loopy feeling inside my head. And I go, dude, I know what you mean, that spinning that just keeps going and going and going. You didn't use their words. You used your own interpretation of what they said. And so you misquoted them. And in doing so, it breaks rapport. You do this in a business setting, in a meeting. Someone says, okay, what we need is we need X, Y, Z. And you're like, okay, so you need A, B. And they're like, in your mind, it's the same thing. But you used a different label. The label has no meaning. You guys are in control of your results. And if the label means nothing and they've used a particular label, and you use a different one, it breaks rapport. You use your language, not theirs. You violate or challenge their values. This is a fun one. I use this one, and I've been experimenting with it about 1.5 years ago. I really got into playing with this one because I was at a bar and someone was saying something to me, and I went, dude, I like that. I went to a networking event, And I went, my name's Alex Aanderud, and I'm a professional mindfucker. How y'all doing? And I just went off. And then I went, okay, I need to know, how did you guys feel about that? Because I care about people's opinion. I care about how they feel. I care about their opinion of me. And I don't want to do something that makes them uncomfortable. And now I use that on a regular basis. I introduce myself that way all the time. Because the first time I did it, it happened to be to a priest, a high school principal, an elementary school teacher. And I was like, that's awesome. And they said, we don't like the language, but you had no charge to it. So I didn't challenge their values. Because I came back and they said, dude, I can't thank you enough because I didn't even realize that it bothered me. A, I had rapport, I could get away with saying it. But B, I came back and I built deeper rapport because I want to make sure that I didn't violate your values. Substitute your values for them, mismatch your participant, or force them. I use that one a lot with sales, where it's like, come on, I know you want to buy it. If you don't buy it today, you're going to. It's like, okay, then I'll miss it. I don't care. Those are all the ways to break rapport. To build and maintain rapport, do pretty much the opposite. There you go. So respond to feedback. Notice how people are moving. If you say something and you see them act a certain way, don't interpret what it means. I love the books that explain what most people mean with their body language, and all I can tell is that you shifted your body language. Here's a great idea. If you want to know what it means, ask. Hey, I just said this and your body shifted like this. What did that mean? I just don't like what you said. What do you mean my body shifted? They don't even know what's going on. And you're like, I'm not going to guess what happened, but I can tell what I just said created a physiological shift in you. And they're like, yeah. Especially to people who don't know any of this stuff, it's awesome to be able to say that. My wife hasn't done any of the studies in NLP or anything. We just got married in July. She hasn't studied any of this stuff. And it's awesome because I'm having a conversation with her and I go, okay, what just happened? And she says, what do you mean? I said something, and I repeat the phrase, and I'll say, okay, when I say that, this is what happens to your physiology. And she went, oh, well, this is what it triggers in me, and this is what, she said, oh, well, it made me feel this way, and so I didn't even realize I did that. It's like, cool, but you start to be aware of what's going on. You start to be aware, when you start to try and match and mirror people, you become more aware that there are people outside of you, instead of always thinking about yourself.
Alex, can I add one more onto your list that maybe is noteworthy to say that
Yes.
I think is obvious to all of us, and I think it's maybe the most important, and that's the name. Calling the person by their name properly, not calling them David when it's George or whatever. And we've all been caught in that, calling somebody the wrong name, or we've been called the wrong name, and all we have to do is evaluate how we feel when we get called the wrong name, and that's instant loss of rapport. And if you remember the name, you're walking down the hall and I see you, or later, Alex, tomorrow or something, I say, hey Alex, nice job on your presentation. People love to hear their name.
And to take it even a step deeper, I agree with you 100%. And instead of calling them David and their name's George, what if you call them David and they like to go by Dave?
Me, Joshua, and John.
Yeah. I know people who, if you call them Alex, if you call them Alex, they'll go, my name's Alexander. If you call me Alexander, I'll respond, I don't care. If you call me Al, it drives me nuts. I don't know why. It doesn't really, it doesn't have a huge effect, but it does break rapport with me because I haven't had a lot of people call me Al, and so it's just weird to me to have someone call me Al. And so it's like, hey Al, I'm like, hey, how you doing? It doesn't do anything to me, but I can tell that there's a quick disconnect, and then I go, crap, I gotta build rapport back up. Because I recognize when it breaks, and I can control when I build it again. So, but name, exactly. But not just the wrong name, but the wrong version of their name. The wrong pronunciation.
Absolutely.
When people call and they go, Mr., I say Alex. My last name is spelled with 2 A's to begin it. It's just weird. And I don't know very many people, they read it and they don't pronounce it right. And I was like, hey, no, just call me Alex, because I don't want to try and build rapport with you after you butcher my name 7 times. And every time you butcher it, it breaks what you're trying to sell me. So why don't you just call me Alex and then try selling me? It'll be much better for you. And they're like, what? Oh, I had a guy from Constant Contact. They're a customer resource manager. That's what they do for a living. That's their company. And he called me up and he made a comment to me, and I was like, why don't you call me in July? I'm not in a place right now where I feel like I'm ready to make this decision. You know, this is why I'm just getting my business started. I just wanted to evaluate the software. And I was explaining some stuff, and he says, well, I wanted to make an argument. At which point I thought that was funny. And so I said, okay. He said, well, and then another time he said counterpoint. And I said, okay, stop for just a minute. I teach sales and communication. And so far you're arguing with me and you're counterpointing, which means you're doing two things which put you in an opposing party to me. I would recommend you change your language pattern if you really want to sell me on anything, and call me July.
Back to point one.
Back to point one. So we've talked about rapport. We've talked about about what are the different steps to build rapport, matching, mirroring, different things you can match and mirror. Talked about what rapport is. I'm going to give you guys an exercise. This is something you can do outside of class, and it's you and your friend. So what I want you to do is take a friend out for lunch, talk with them naturally, match and mirror them. Like, it's going to happen naturally because they're your friend, but notice what you're doing and maybe do a little bit more on purpose. Then, purposely mismatch them. And just keep doing it until they like it. I've done this 100 times because my friends are the most willing participants in my studies. And so I'll be doing this. And they're like, dude, what are you doing? It feels like you're not even here. I'm actively engaged in a conversation with them, and they say it feels like you're not even here.
Maybe you look the way you're looking up or something like that.
No, I can be looking right at them, and they're sitting like that. And then they lean back, and I look forward. And it's just that constant disconnect. When they're used to being in rapport with you, when they're used to being in the same situation, it throws the pattern off, and they go, something's not right. Then, once you notice the shift, get back into rapport and see how quickly you can get them to start following you. So do the pacing and try leads and see how fast you can get back into it. No worries. Are there any questions on this exercise? I've got a couple other things I want to share before we move on, but anything else, any questions on that? Okay. So here's opportunities for extra learning, homework, things you guys can do outside of here, which is practice matching and mirroring, observe people interacting. It's fun to go to like Applebee's or something and sit in the corner and just watch people. Like, just watch how they're moving, how they're sitting, how they're talking. Notice if you go to a bar at night and you see some guy approach some girl, notice when he walks up, notice if he's matching and mirroring her in the approach, and notice whether or not she rejects him. That's a fun one.
My wife and I play that game a lot where we'll go, okay, try to find a couple. Let's see if they're going to end up together tonight and watch the way they interact throughout the bar or the restaurant. Because you can tell people on first dates
Yeah.
very easily because everybody's close. And you can tell the couple that's been together forever because they're on the phone and they're looking away from each other.
It's amazing. I mean, it's just fun. It's a fun experiment to go out and see what you can observe. Because here's the deal. The more you practice observing, the more natural it becomes to you to not have to observe. I mentioned to you about the shoulder being down a little bit. That's because I go back and I'm playing it in my head and I'm like, okay, that's what it was. I didn't notice that when I walked in the room. That wasn't something I consciously saw because I have trained my unconscious mind. Watch. Watch everything. Take everything in and respond accordingly. Rapport is not something you can do consciously for long. Rapport is an unconscious process. Practice it until it becomes second nature and watch your world change. So, words, while needed, are the least effective tool for communication. 7% doesn't really help much. Doesn't really matter what you say, it's how you say it that actually is true. Trust is built with rapport and maintained by experiences. So you build trust quickly using rapport, and then you're able to maintain it by continuing to fulfill your commitments. With rapport, anything is possible, including changing your friends' lives. Even losing rapport. How many of you guys have had a friend that you were talking to and all of a sudden you just felt disconnected? And it took a while before you reconnected with that person. You had one bad experience, something happened, they offended you, they challenged your values. What happened was they broke rapport at a deep level. And you didn't feel the connection, the urge to go back and talk to them again. So even with rapport, it's possible to break rapport. But here's the deal. If you can break rapport and you know the tools, you can build it back again. Matching and mirroring is the key. That's how you do it.